Hi again then guys, and so we've got another Gran Turismo 6 Drag Spec tune for you today, and this time it's for an absolutely crazy little car which initially may seem a little bit slow compared to some of the cars of this series, and on paper it is, but for its power it's insanely fast, and in terms of performance to power ratio it's actually far beyond any of the other cars in this series. It's also one of the most underappreciated and underestimated cars on Gran Turismo, the Daihatsu Storia X4, or the Daihatsu Sirion X4. There are two different versions, they're exactly the same. So you want your racing soft tyres, of course. For brakes, I've changed the balance to 6-4. You don't have to do that though. For ride height, we've got 130 front and rear. Springs, we've rounded down to 2 front and rear. For compression on the dampers, you've got 4 on the front, 1 on the back, 4 on both for extension, anti-roll as high as possible, neutral camber and tow as always. For the gearbox, you want the highest possible auto setting. Then for the individual gears, we've got first all the way to the right, then second on 1.2, third, fourth and fifth all the way to the left, and sixth on 0.390 with a final drive of 5.7. For the diff, we've got the highest initial torque, highest acceleration and lowest braking with a torque split of 30-70. For the power, interestingly, all of the turbos actually give you very similar performance, so you might as well go for the high RPM turbo because it does give you the best spec. For NOS, you do want to fit NOS, or I would recommend it, and obviously you want the full weight loss package. I'm going to be using an automatic gearbox, as I do with most of my drag tunes, so if you do personally use manual, you will obviously be quicker. And traction control is of course turned off. Now, as always, I put these vehicles up against more powerful and, strictly speaking, faster opposition to show what they can do in real drag situations. So this time we've put it up against a 600 horsepower Mazda RX-8, which will also be using NOS and running racing soft tyres, compared to this car's 340 horsepower. So let's see how they compare. Now the Mazda is much stronger top end, as you'd expect, and it is actually fractionally quicker to the quarter mile at 9.3 seconds compared to the Daihatsu's 9.4, but they're very close, and considering that the Mazda has virtually double the power, that's pretty impressive for a little Daihatsu. Now, this is not really a top-end tune, and it's not the kind of tune which I'd recommend necessarily using against the kind of opposition that would usually be in a drag lobby, even. I'd recommend using it more against vehicles with a similar power range, because if you start using it against vehicles with 600, 700, 800 horsepower, obviously they're going to be faster top-end. But against vehicles with 3 to say 6, maybe 600 tops, but about 300 to 600 horsepower, it will give them a great run for their money. In some cases it can beat vehicles with more, but in general I'd only recommend using it in the more mid-level of power. But the performance is very strong for its power, and it actually hits 60 miles per hour in 2.3 seconds, which for a Daihatsu is absolutely insane. And even if it wasn't a Daihatsu, that is crazy fast for something that only has 343 horsepower, which is why I said, technically speaking, for its power to performance ratio, it's actually pretty much the best car of this series. Now, as always, there are far too many specs to read out, but like I said, it hits 60 in 2.3 seconds, it hits 100 miles per hour in 4.6. It will do the quarter mile, as I said just now, in 9.4, which again for the power is very fast. It will do the standing mile. I doubt many people would use it for that kind of drag, but incidentally it does the standing mile in 23.7 seconds, that's 1600 meters. And it will cover 5,000 meters in under a minute. So for a Daihatsu it is pretty quick. But as I said, just be more selective than with most of my drag tunes as to when you choose to use this car, because in its own little niche it is almost unbeatable, but obviously its range of effectiveness isn't like require a level, so don't expect it to be. But if you haven't bought one of these cars before, I would strongly recommend that you do. It also makes an absolutely phenomenal track car for the PP. So for those of you who do decide to use this tune, I hope you find it fun and obviously competitive. And if you did find it helpful, feel free to subscribe. I put out new drag tunes every weekend, new top speed tunes every day. And as always, thanks for watching.